I'm Steve Morgan, founder of Cybersecurity Ventures and editor-in-chief at Cybercrime magazine. I'm here today with Gordon Lawson, CEO at Conceal, provider of an intelligence-grade zero-trust technology that protects global companies of all sizes from malware and ransomware. To learn more about our sponsor, Conceal, visit conceal.io. Also joining us is Andrea D'Elia, head of cybersecurity at WebHero, a division of Gestion Corporative AD Inc., a Canadian company based in Quebec. Welcome, Andrea, Gordon. Great to have both of you with us today.
Thank you for having me again.
Thanks, Steve. Good to be here.
Andrea, I reached to you when I saw a story in CBC about cybercrime in Canada. I read the story twice. I found it hard to believe. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police and other Canadian agencies apparently do not have the capacity or capability to police cybercrime. So I wanted to get a level set, find out from you, is that an exaggeration? Is that accurate? And this is according to a new report from Canada's Auditor General. So put it in perspective for us.
In fact, the findings do align with what I see on the field. I work in the trenches of ransomware attacks. I'm there when it's time to respond to incidences. And in fact, we do not rely on law enforcement to come to assist. Sometimes we don't even file reports because we just know that they won't come, or they'll file the report and it just falls through the cracks of the system.
So, Gordon, RCMP, similar to what we're seeing here in the U.S. government, having a hard time filling positions, they claim that about 1/3 of their cybersecurity positions are open. What do you do? And especially when you're dealing, with a government where it's so critical.
Well, I think that you got a difficult situation where probably some of the best cyber trained personnel would come out of the government. Maybe they were military or something, and then you have a income disparity issue because those folks might want to go to the private sector instead of going to work for law enforcement or to continue to stay in the government. I would imagine Canada has some of the same issues there, but it's a tough issue, and I think that companies, the only real thing we can do here, Steve, is for companies to continue to build their own resiliency. As I look at these attacks and the ransomware, like the auto software supply chain one that recently happened, it feels like a lot of these are either, if they weren't preventable from the get-go with the company affected, there needs to be better resiliency plans within the private sector. And I think we're just going to have to help companies continue to build up those plans for a bad contingency.
Andrea, one of the data points that really grabbed me in this report, only 5 to 10% of cybercrimes are reported. And again, that's according to Canada's Auditor General. Here in the US, I've seen numerous reports, but it's more in the 50% range. I mean, either way, it's a big problem. But for only 10% of cybercrimes to be reported, that's astounding. Do you also think that's accurate? And if it is it fair to say that RCMP can't police it?
Unfortunately, there's a lack of awareness. Sometimes victims don't even know that they've been victimized by cybercrime just because it has such a technological aspect to the crime that oftentimes it's dismissed by law enforcement, or they just don't have the technological resources to identify the problem adequately. And then there's the perceived ineffectiveness. So unfortunately, the public, and this report sort of showcases what the public feels. In fact, we think that law enforcement cannot police, and unfortunately, that is true due to the fact that the traditional policing methods are not adequate to now, investigate highly sophisticated exploits. This is an intrusion analysis. It takes, great resources, and it's resources that we just don't have. And of course, there's the privacy concern. Corporations still have the stigma of actually reporting. First of all, they say, why report if we're just going to look bad in the media? But it's a catch-22 because, in fact, we have to work together, lessons learned, we have to share the intelligence. And if we're not investigating these crimes, we are not building the intelligence to actually build an infrastructure with resilience, knowing what's coming towards us.
So, Gordon, one of the things the report touched on is a global issue, because we've definitely seen it here in the U.S. and we've seen this in other countries. People don't know where to report a cybercrime. And in fact, I was recently talking to a neighbor of mine. He owns a small business, and he asked me if we got hit with ransomware, who would we call? And here on Long Island, it wouldn't be the local Suffolk County Police Department, but most people just don't know. I know with the FBI, they're only handling cases, directly that are $50,000 and greater. So how big of a problem is that, and where do people turn?
It's a huge problem, Steve, but I also think that this is the importance of having a managed service provider or an MSSP that's watching your systems. I think that's critical. And I think that, those folks, there's a lot of great ones throughout North America. They can help to not only provide the resilience to withstand these attacks, but also if something does occur, they have certain folks that can help with the, potentially the ransom process. I think that this goes back to the fact that obviously when a public company, when this happens, there's SEC disclosures. So they're going to report regardless, but the smaller guys that don't have those regulatory requirements, they need to have some resources at their disposal, someone they can call. And I think after it happens, if you're trying to spin that up with a firm that doesn't know your internal IT infrastructure, it's just going to take more time. And so outsource it to the experts and let them help you to build a system that prevents this in the first place. But if it does happen, it can help you get back on your feet quicker.
So Andrea Gordon makes a great point about businesses. You're well aware. You partner with Conceal. They do a great job helping companies. What about consumers? Looking at that report, it seems that there were a lot of people who called the Communication Security Establishment, the CSE, and they couldn't help. They couldn't refer customers anywhere else, consumers, I should say.
In fact, the CSC is oftentimes unable to help. We do have a fraud hotline that the public can call. However, it's an automated message and you never get a call back. We have our municipal precincts or city police forces and even specialized tasks within the city that have a cyber unit, but they are deprived of resources and tools. And then, we have our provincial police that have their cyber units, as well as the RCMP NC3 units. We have our intelligence agency, which is CSIS, every single level, and I've dealt with every single one of them. They look at themselves to have a very restrictive mandate. And oftentimes, the answer that you'll get from them is that, oh, we don't touch upon that, or we're not a law enforcement. We'll take the intelligence, we'll take the information, but they don't act on it. And that really displays a significant gap in our interconnected agencies and the coordination, response, and communication. The victims are just left on their own. So many times these cases just, fall through the cracks, and, ransomware attacks get mitigated. However, there's a huge cost on society.
So, Gordon, the last thing we're going to do is criticize law enforcement at the end of the day. They're working hard, whether they're in Canada or in our country, anywhere. These are the ultra good guys because they've devoted their life to helping and protecting society. So what could they be doing? I mean, are young people possibly the answer? Maybe generate, more of a pipeline to, staff those positions?
I think the awareness and the education and training the next generation of cyber defenders is critical, Steve. I hesitate to deep dive on the causes of some of these recent breaches, but I want to talk about two that are kind of front and center right now, and these obviously cross borders in many ways. The first is AT&T, right? I guess the data is over a year old, and it was interesting in the disclosure. It was did not want to release this because of national security concerns and related to a breach on Snowflake, which was basically fundamentally, this was, I think, publicly reported, not using MFA. So it's credential theft. And I just go back to the awareness and mitigating measures, like best practices, like using MFA, obviously. But as we deep dive on the causes of most of these breaches and subsequent ransomware, it's a user putting in credentials, clicking on something they're not supposed to, and then bad things cascading from there. And then, threat actors getting admin rights and they're off to the races. And so I just think there needs to be continuous training, continuous controls to prevent this and really, I think, inspect at whether it's a large public company or it's a smaller company that these steps are being followed. because you could probably train all the cyber defenders you want in the world, but if that's not being done, this is going to continue to get worse and worse, is my fear.
Andrew, we always like to close off with a positive spin if that's possible. Canada is a great country. They're a great friend of ours. What does the future hold? Do you see, things improving? What can be done?
I'm always hopeful, and I try to raise awareness, and I look at myself as a public defender, try to protect the public. I give a lot of my time and effort, and a lot of the intelligence I build is on my own time. Like we said, we're not criticizing the people in uniform or people doing a great job. I criticize the system and those that have the power to ignite change and that don't. But I'm crossing my fingers that this doesn't fall on deaf ears. Of course, solutions to this, my number one gripe is our criminal code. We need legislation policy and legislation. So we need to update those laws and regulations really to reflect the evolving nature of cyber threats and crimes, and really follow the robust frameworks that we have in place for to enforce them. There's of course resource allocation. I will always stipulate this. The responsibility often goes on the shoulders of law enforcement, but instead of actually deploying the budgets, we are really tightening our belts and cutting their budgets and cutting their resources, when we should really, give them the tools and training that they so need. So increase the funding, specialized training also. I feel that every crime has an aspect of technology. We are all part of that ecosystem. We all have a device. Therefore, we need to know how to manipulate and handle these devices when there is a crime that's perpetrated. So standardized protocol. I mean, when I investigate, I follow the cyber kill chain, the diamond model. It's something that you can, that everybody should follow. That's how we report these crimes. That's how it's investigated. That's how, Crown prosecutors can present, judges could understand in a linear, very standardized methodology to that. Public awareness, training, great tools also, because we often train the public and but the training that we did about a year ago is not sufficient enough, because now cyber criminals are leveraging artificial intelligence. So you won't find those spelling mistakes in those emails or phishing attacks. So you need tools that that take away the thinking and the stress from the workers or the employees or the people, the public, and actually use tools like the Conceal browse that does sort of the thinking for you, to invest in companies that are all in this realm. Because it's one thing to deploy a product, but they are continuously doing research to actually improve on these products. So we have to support all these companies also. And of course, interagency coordination, just sort of improve communication. It's my biggest gripe in the government, is that nobody talks to anybody and nobody is actually the watchdog over all these agencies. Public-private partnerships. I can talk at length about this, but I think we did a good summary today.
So, Gordon, maybe you could close out for us, since Andrea just brought up Conceal Browse. Outstanding technology, but what I like the most, and we're fans here, is the business model you have. So, Conceal is engaging. You brought up earlier MSPs, MSSPs, independent experts like Andrea. Just talk to us a little bit about what you're doing on the channel side, because a lot of those folks are watching us.
I think that the channel is such an important piece from a business side in terms of distribution, but also, Steve, as I said, we want to empower the experts that are with these businesses day in and day out, and they don't just have Conceal as a software, but they have the whole security stack, and making sure the companies are holistically prepared, or holistically serviced, whether that's with EDR, security awareness, the other pieces of the security stack that they need to be effective. And I'll just mention one other piece, just with respect to Conceal. The newest breach that's been disclosed today is with Disney, and it was Slack accounts that have been compromised. One of the things that, as we talk to our clients, is we're scanning URLs, not just in email, where a lot of these phishing attacks are occurring, but across all applications, Slack, WhatsApp, and the threat actors are getting very good at weaponizing those. And I think if you, once again, I don't know the details, but I think if you did a deep dive on how the Disney one happened, it looks like Slack credentials being stolen, admin rights being able to get all that data and siphon off that data. And so it really is, I think, important that all applications across an endpoint are secured, because the nature of work today is that critical information will be shared across those. And that's something that we're very vigilant about, enabling these channel partners to protect for their clients.
Gordon, as always, a pleasure to have you with us, and we'll check back in with you soon.
Great. Thank you all.
Hey, Andrea, appreciate you coming back on with us. Hope to see you again soon. Keep up the good fight in Canada.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
I'm Steve Morgan, founder of Cybersecurity Ventures and editor-in-chief at Cybercrime magazine. This interview is sponsored by Conceal, provider of an intelligence-grade zero-trust technology that protects companies of all sizes from malware and ransomware. To learn more, visit conceal.io. You can keep up with all of our media at cybercrimemagazine.com.